held Artist Tour 2023 by Anna Camilleri and Joung.
Hi, thanks for coming today. My name's Sean. I'm the Director of Programming here at Tangled Art and Disability. I am going to start with an image description of myself. I'm somebody who uses he and they pronouns. I'm male presenting. I am East Asian Chinese with relatively light skin. I'm also visibly disabled, so my back curves, my shoulders are uneven. And for those who are joining in person, you've probably noticed I'm quite short of stature. I'm also wearing this kind of interesting brown color blocked shirt. It's got this like orange circle on the shoulder, a little black triangle, and then a little square, blue square on my left hip, on the left side of my hip. I've got dark hair that flows past my shoulders, and I'm wearing these like steampunk glasses that are round with circle lenses that kind of float on the rims. And I'm wearing a blue face mask. And yeah, that's me. As we gather here today, I want to acknowledge the land that Tangled is based on and the historical and ongoing realities that shape this space. So although this talk takes place both in person and online, we recognize that these realms are both intertwined with the colonial politics and systems of the world. Tekaronto, now known as Toronto, means where there are trees standing in the water in Mohawk. Today, Tekaronto is located on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. These lands were once part of a much larger system with countless nations whose histories may not have been fully documented and is now home to a diverse array of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and it serves as a meeting ground for the urban indigenous Tekaronto community. This area is covered under Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. However, we remain mindful of broken covenants and unfulfilled promises made by the Canadian government and strive to rectify these wrongs with the land and with each other. Many of us have arrived here as settlers, immigrants, or newcomers in this generation or generations past. And we also acknowledge those who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, and we honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. It's important to recognize that the arts and culture sector in Canada has actively erased, dehumanized, and displaced Indigenous peoples and their stories. In our work in the arts, we're committed to the complex concept of decolonization, which means being accountable for the systematic relationships that we have with one another and acknowledging the power we hold in curating stories of our culture and its heritage. We strive to ensure that access and decolonization remain deeply intertwined, recognizing the interconnected ways colonization has impacted disability. So in that spirit of access, we want to highlight some access protocols for today. We appreciate the presence of our ASL interpreters, Savannah and Nico, who are right there, as well as our care attendant, Nikki, who's in the library space, and who can support anyone who might need any assistance or any help with washrooms, which are located by the Roastery Cafe or down the halls by Open Studio. I also want to note this is a relaxed space, so feel free to move around and make noise if you need, play with the artworks in the space, and there's a library space that doubles as a bit of a quiet space and just a place to take a break from in here. We also kindly request that you wear a mask, and we encourage others to do so while inside our space and also just in your daily encounters, as access is an act of resistance. So if you don't have a mask, we can pass around a box, which, yeah, we can do that later. Also, as we resist, I find we have to discuss all the interconnected ways that colonization impacts us. And I want to acknowledge the larger context of the world too. As we make these land acknowledgements, we commit to deepen our rejection of colonial logics. And we recognize that 15,000 people have been killed in Gaza in the last 6 weeks. The 4-day pause shows us that pressure can work and that a ceasefire is possible, but already there's plans to recommence the bombardment. A pause is not enough. We demand a permanent ceasefire and an end to Canada's complicity in genocide. I want to echo the words of Wanda Nanabush that colonization, whether in Canada or Palestine, marks a before and after where identity is radically altered by loss. I'd like to pass it over to the two incredible artists for our exhibition, Held, who have filled this space with abundance and potential. Joung is an interdisciplinary artist with an interest in co-creation, performance, and multisensory artwork. Their body of work spans mosaic, sound, movement, percussion, video, and installation. Their practice often intertwines the digital and the analog, the personal and the public, the sensory-based and the story-based. Ku was the inaugural recipient of the 2018 JRG Award for Artists with Disabilities and the Associate Artistic Director of Redefine Arts and a performer of Raw Taiko. And Anna Camilleri, who works across diverse media, including sculpture, installation, literature, and performance. A producer and public artist, her practice is activated through collaboration and mentorship. Camilleri has presented and exhibited at galleries and festivals, such as the Festival of Live Digital Art, Liminal, the Interdisciplinary Critical Femininities Conference, Steps Public Art, National Queer Arts Festival, Whitewater Gallery, Live, Biennial of Performance Art at Grunt Gallery, and National Library Archives, just to name a few. Her book works have been recognized with distinctions from the Lambda Literary Foundation, the Association of Independent Publishers, and the American Library of Congress. She is founding artistic co-director of Redefine Arts and a 2023 TAC/TMU Leaders Lab Fellow. So pass it over to the two of you. Welcome, and thanks for being here today.
Anytime.
Whatever kind of feels comfortable. Yeah. This you can just
Hold on. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's YJ. Thank you, Sean, for all of those introductory notes. Before we begin, I also want to acknowledge the genocide currently taking place in Palestine, the destruction of Gaza's hospital system, the mass displacement and loss of life, and the inseparability of disability justice to this crisis. The artworks in Held cannot end the violence in Gaza, nor can they end the global rise in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, but it can encourage and support others to take action. Anna and I have created preprints of our artwork, and on the back is a script and instructions for emailing or calling elected officials to demand an immediate and sustained ceasefire. You can find them on the table in the back. Held asks, what abundant disability futures do you hold close or carry forward? And I ask, may your abundant visions for the future include a free Palestine?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Anna. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Yeah, so we're going to do an artist talk. YJ and I are going to move around a little bit in the space and visit some of the artworks here. I think what I want to say just at the very outset is that this exhibition was co-created and co-imagined by YJ and I. together, which is really exciting. We have an 8-year history of working with one another, but also large artist teams on projects with very significant and big social change intentions. So to have an opportunity for YJ and I to come together and really dream into, what do we want to create and how do we want to create it, has been really rich and wonderful. We've been working on the exhibition for a year, and the intention was to really create an ecosystem and environment that folks could move through and engage with and touch and sit on. So welcome to Held. I hope you feel held in the space while we're here together. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think where we might begin is to spend a little bit of time with some of these pebble mosaics. Is it okay, Nicole, if I move around a little bit? Not too quickly. So some of you are sitting on or touching these stone mosaics in the gallery. There are about 20 pieces. And I guess just some initial thoughts is all of the work in the exhibition, there was so much process and really kind of this time-based process of creation. So the stones in these pebble mosaics were collected by YJ and I, our partners, our friends, from Lakeside Park in Mississauga, Ontario, where there used to be a clay pipe building factory that was decommissioned decades ago. But there's a combination of kind of clay left over from this industrial activity, kind of combining with lake silt, and there's many kilometers of this tumbled sedimentary stone. So we spent a lot of time collecting the stone, and that was kind of the beginning of this process. And then maybe I'll pass it over to you, YJ, and you can bump back and forth a bit.
Yeah. The red stone is let's say brick. And you can see if you look, some of them, or if you look or touch, some of them have a little bit of a curve to them because they used to be the actual clay pipes. And so, like, fun fact, when we were collecting, sometimes you'll find like a rock and you can see like sewer written on it, or pipe, or, Toronto. Yeah, that's like, I think, one of my favorite little facts about these delicious red stones. Yeah, and our process for creating these works. What was our process?
Yeah, when we were thinking about disability futures, like one of the images that returned to YJ and I again and again was water motif and river. So we were drawn to the water, to collect, these stones have been tumbled over a long time, but then also pebble mosaic is a form that we've worked in together for 8 years, for 8 years.
Yeah.
The pebble mosaics have found expression in public art, and and so they live in situ in ground. So to really think about this medium that we've spent a lot of time with and how to kind of bring it into the gallery, into a space where we can engage with it in a different way, has been really interesting. And you might not see it, like its expression is a bit abstract because there's not like a narrative push with the pebble mosaics, but YJ and I were really thinking about conjuring a kind of river. So if you kind of move through the stone mosaics and notice or feel kind of the flow in them, like right here in the center area where there's a kind of bench, think of it as like those curls in the river where there's these little whirlpools, these swirls, and there's the undertow. Yeah, lots of movement. So that's a little bit about kind of our history of creating this artwork. And then of course we actually paddled on a river together and recorded some footage, which YJ is going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, also connected to our past work with pebble mosaic, is that I think almost all of the great majority of those mosaics are monuments to remember, commemorate, specifically victims and survivors of gender-based violence. And with this pebble mosaic, I think we're still holding on to a piece of that and wanting to create, again, like a monument for like the future and for the dreams that the dreams of the lives that we want to have, and to have something really heavy and solid and long lasting that can exist and be here and carry that forward for a long, long time. Also, if there are questions at any time about any of the materials or the process, I think we're taking questions on a rolling basis.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah, for sure. Maybe I'll just say, like, the process of creation of these artworks is in a precast method. So basically, we build molds or forms that we're working in, and we build in sand. And so when we cast these works, all of the stones are covered, and then we release them, kind of turn them around and wash the sand away, or in this case, like, save the sand for the next project, and then reveal the stones. So the other method to do pebble mosaic building is to work in situ, in place, on hands and knees. And many, many years ago, it was like, we can't do that. Like, a lot of folks actually can't participate in that. Our bodies are not happy about that. You know, so this is a method where we could work at a table across from one another, and slowly, it's a slow cook method. It's a slow method. Yeah.
Yeah, and we wanted these pebble mosaics to be able to, like, to really be interactive. Usually when these are, like, in other scenarios, when they're installed permanently outdoors, like in the park or, you know, by the river, they, like, withstand the winter, they withstand time. You can walk on them, you can drive over them with a truck, literally, and you can turn them into benches. So we really wanted to be able to incorporate, I don't know what the word for it is, but like an invitation to, like, sit, rest, spend some time with the artworks, and have them really be a part of our, like, usable environment.
Why do you want to, shall we move on to Carrie Hold Release?
Sure.
Where are we going?
Yeah, Carrie Hold Release. Let's do Carrie Hold Release. Yes.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hard not to say hi to friends first. Hi, friend. Yeah, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about Carrie Hold Release. So Carrie Hold Release is an installation that is above us, that's kind of aerial. I can't tell you how happy it makes me to experience the work this way. So there are here, yes. So some of the vessels, and I will describe them, are hanging from earth magnets. So you can pull them down, and if you want, you can walk around in the gallery and you can engage with an invitation that YJ and I made, which is, what visions do you hold close or wish to carry forward for disability futures? I've changed the wording a little bit, but yeah, the invitation is for you to really add your voice to that prompt, to engage with it. And you can also engage with that prompt online or through postcards, mail in. But maybe I'll go back to talking a little bit about Carrie Hold Release. So this is an installation that I started working on in 2019 during the LGBTQ intergenerational artist residency. Both YJ and I are alums of the residency, and Birdie was in my cohort. Hi, Birdie. Yeah, and so maybe just to talk a bit about my intention with this work. So these vessels are primarily made out of recycled paper. I would say 95% of the material is recycled paper that I turn into a pulp. And what I was holding, my intention was really thinking about as a queer person who has experienced a lot of trauma, you know, there is, and where there are some cultural dislocations, like there's a lack of, I guess for me in my life, like secular ritual, like how do I mark the important moments in my life or the losses or the joys, kind of significant events. And so this was my answer, was really just on instinct, was to start to create these vessels as my own response. But what I imagined was that it would be an invitation to others to kind of answer the question for themselves in their own way. Like, what do you wish to carry, hold, or release? Yeah, one of the, and maybe this is just a side note, YJ and Katie is here. Katie, thank you so much for all of your hard work on the installation. Katie built these beautiful armatures that the pebble mosaics are on, and figured out how to install this work. And YJ and Katie worked closely on the installation, and it was such a beautiful act of care for me that we kind of held each other's artworks. And so I really worked very little on this installation. I worked on other pieces in the gallery. And I don't feel like that's incidental. It's kind of like it's embedded in the artwork, like this, how the work was created and the intention and how the work was installed. There's these relationships and kind of relationships of care that run through the artwork. This work, or part of this installation, has been a part of a few different exhibitions, but has been on podiums. Like the iterations were quite different. And what I've always imagined is that they would be just kind of like, you know, floating. There's something about this feeling of weightlessness that really invites me or uplifts me. So I just feel very, when I walked into the gallery today, and nothing was new here. You know, we spent almost 2 weeks working on the installation, but it just felt really good. And I feel like it reflects the thing that we started dreaming about together about 15 months ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would add, Anna and I are kind of considering this a co-solo show. And I found that when I start telling people that, I'm like, what's that? That's not a thing. Just two people having a show together. I'm like, no, it's a co-solo show. Which I think for us is like, I wrote some good words about it on my Instagram, but I don't remember what they were. But something about recognizing that like this exhibit, this show, is something born of interdependence. And I think it was very like tangible when I was spending time with all of Anna's vessels. And you obviously took a lot of time to create them. Mm-hmm. There's over 400 of them. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, during our 2-week install, I was drilling holes and tying all this string, spending lots of time with these vessels while Anna was tending to my wall mosaics. And yeah, it is like, I think there is something about like a solo show that it's like, oh, it's only your artwork, you know, just mine, just yours. And there are pieces in this show that I'm like, yeah, these are my pieces, but also Anna taught me how to make mosaics. So, you know, these are my works, but they're also really imbued with our long history and Anna's teachings and knowledge. So in a way, it feels really inseparable. And that's, yeah, kind of one of those little things that's hard to articulate about what a co-solo show is, but I hope I did it justice.
Yeah. It's really beautiful.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if I could offer anybody a vessel to hold.
Most of the vessels that are within reachable height are removable via magnets. And then all of the vessels that are up hanging closer to the ceiling out of most people's reach are not removable because they're a little too high to be removed anyways. But yeah, feel free to engage with them.
Yeah. Should we talk about video?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about the video. So projected on the wall behind us is a video. It's a video projection. Tentatively titled "Reaching Beyond the River Grass." And this was the view overlooking the river that Anna and I had when we were building all of these pebble mosaics. And it's really truly a spectacular view. It's sort of a winding river surrounded by like lush green poplar trees. And I don't know what the tree is in the foreground on the right.
White pine.
White pine. And it's very subtle, but it's raining. When I took the clip, there was some gentle rain. It just felt like a really beautiful moment to capture. And Anna and I went out paddling on the river, and I ended up taking some footage of the reflection of my hands in the water, which is what's overlaid over top of the river. And so my hands are sort of just reaching and floating and longing and holding and doing all these various motions that I would describe that way. And you can see kind of the ripple in the water coming in and out. Some of the reflections of my hand are very clear, and some of them are very kind of warbled and warped by the movement of the water. And I think when we brought it into the gallery, it really transformed into something else, because specifically of the shadows of all the hanging vessels projected, or I guess interfering with the projection. So we have the video and then all of these vessels hanging from the ceiling. And we got them up and we realized, oh, some of them might be, in the view of the projector. And they were, and it was perfect. And so now carry, hold, release is also like in relationship with the video and with my hands, and kind of provide something tangible or visual that I am reaching for, and felt like it wasn't like a planned thing that the hands would be reaching for the orbs, but it just kind of happened and it felt really perfect.
Yeah.
Let's see about the video.
Well, I mean, I was really excited to see. I knew that there would be these beautiful shadows.
I forgot.
I was really excited, but it's okay. Are you okay, Kathy?
I'm releasing.
I feel like it would be a good time to see if there are any questions.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to move on to wall mosaics.
Yeah.
Should I go and investigate?
I think it was just an orb that fell,
Okay.
which is gonna happen.
Yeah, so YJ and I are just kind of pausing as we're,
Promotion.
yeah, things are happening around us in the gallery. I feel like now might be a really good time to invite like any reflections or questions from anybody who's here. Hi, Catherine. Yeah. And I have a question about these lines around the edge. Yeah. And they like almost like sort of open walking with the line, but then I don't want it. And you're allowed to touch it forward. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad that you asked the question, Catherine. And I was wondering if for sighted folks, if it would be understood as a barrier. What we wanted to do was to create kind of deepen the invitation and to let folks know, like people who are moving using visual aids or canes, that they're an indicator of like there's an object ahead of you. So there's kind of this tape line that travels around all of the mosaics, and then there's also tactile objects to just kind of outline the shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you think of like those strips on the sidewalk close to intersections, like where you cross the street, they have those like yellow bumpy bumps on the ground to indicate like this is the edge of the street, or this is the edge of the sidewalk. And we realized like a lot of these pebble mosaics are, you know, some of them are at shin height, knee height, hip height, and some of them do have kind of points that like reach out in different directions, that it would be a good and important access consideration to mark it in some kind of way for safety.
Anna and YJ, Tracy T asked me those to repeat the audience questions so Zoom participants understand that they are speaking.
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding us to do that. So the question that Catherine asked was, so around all of the stone mosaics on the ground, there's gray tape that runs approximately about 6 inches away from all of the stone mosaics. And then there's also white porcelain rounds. They're little white porcelain tiles. So it's basically a visual marker and a tactile marker that surrounds all of the stone mosaics. And Catherine was asking kind of why this was being used, and also acknowledged that they kind of felt a bit like a barrier, like maybe don't touch. But it was a way of extending the invitation to touch, which is, you know, it's interesting. Like some of the access intentions woven into the exhibition, like they are experienced and understood really differently because, you know, we have different bodies. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or reflections?
Some of the orbs have things in them that they will know. We're hoping that you get.
Yeah. So we were going to get to this at the end of our tour, but now seems like a good time to mention it. Yeah. We do have, oh, yes. So Claudine was saying that some of these orbs have little notes in them. I don't know if you can see this on the iPad. Can you see it? Or should I take it down? Yeah, some of them have little folded up notes. We have a sort of interactive component of the exhibit. It's a cozy little library space in the back of the gallery, where there are some writing utensils, some pieces of paper, and then our prompt, which is what is our prompt? What is the wording? What abundant visions for the future, for disability futures, do you hold close or carry forward? And so this is a question that we're asking any willing participants. Oh, yes, here's my prompt. What visions for disability futures do you hold close or carry forward? On a slip of paper, we invite you to respond to the above prompt with one or a few words. Responses will be transformed by the artists into a collective poem and shared during HELD's closing event on January 19th. You may sign your name or alias, or you may remain anonymous. When your slip is complete, bring it out to the main gallery and tuck it away into one of the hanging vessels. Yeah.
And there's also a way to, if you would like to engage with the prompt, like accept the invitation, you can do that digitally online. There's a QR code, and we also produced a small run of postcards, which we would be happy to mail to you if you request, and then you could also send it back. Yeah, so our hope is to really create a collaborative poem that is full of echoes and all of our voices, that it's like really a collective, a collaborative piece. Yeah.
And on that topic, we're also hosting a online writing workshop to invite people to directly engage with these prompts with us. And that's on December 12th.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, yeah, so we've talked about, oh, yes. Norma. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We haven't talked about the hands. So I'll repeat Norma's question. So Norma just asked, is there something about, you know, the theme of hands in this exhibition, because hands appear in the video, hands appear in the wall mosaics, and there's a series of wall mosaics and then a single wall mosaic. And I think the answer is yes, Norma. Hands are, yeah, you know, I mean, certainly, like, there's the carry, hold, like this intention of inviting engagement around, like, what do you want to carry forward or hold? What do you imagine for abundant disability futures? Say, like, at kind of the cornerstone of the exhibition, YJ and I co-imagined it together, and we both brought some bodies of work that we had developed together into the exhibition. So for me, one of those pieces was this installation that I called Carry, Hold, Release, which is really literally about, like, please hold it, please touch it. And it's not performative. It's not about witnessing. It's not about an act of performance. It really is about, like, if you want to just put your intention into it, your thought, that's enough. That's great. If you want to, you know, add something, an image or writing, wonderful. So that's one of the cornerstone pieces. And then the other one is YJ's wall mosaics behind me. And maybe this would be a good time for you to talk about this series, YJ.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this series is, sure. This series is called What We Have Always Dreamed of. And this is a mosaic series that I created, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 3, maybe like a year or so before the start of the pandemic. And it's funny, I just remembered that I had asked Sean to help look over a grant application that helped fund these. So thank you to the OAC and to Sean for your amazing feedback. Yeah, so I created these pieces, and then they went away into a box for a couple years. And I didn't quite know what to do with them, where for them to go. And then the pandemic happened, and they just sat in a box for a long time. But I'm very, very glad that they're finally out here with us. Yeah, and I don't know exactly what drew me to, like, hands, but I think they can emote a lot. And when I was creating these, I think I was also spending a lot of time by myself. And And so these hands are also based on like photos I took of my own hands. So using my own body as the kind of subject, although they don't represent me. They're just hands. And initially I built them in kind of a square tableau that they kind of all fit together with these like flowing patterns. And then for this exhibit, we decided to rearrange them in a different configuration. And sort of flowing out from pretty much all of the hands are these like tiny little circular, I like to call them gems. They're just little shiny circles in different colors. There's blues and greens and sparkling whites and kind of a pearly color and blues. And there's different amounts of these little gems kind of flowing out of or into the different hands in this tableau. And what I was thinking about when I was creating this was really interdependence. And what are the ways that that can actually look. I think something that I sort of held on to a lot for this piece is not necessarily like the amount of gems in each hand. Like you can see one of these hands is just clutching one right in the center of its palm. There's one sort of down lower to the ground, just kind of holding one between the thumb and the index. And then there's one all the way on the right side of the wall that is just kind of spewing them out into the sky. And I think I was just trying to get at like recognizing that we all sort of show up with different capacities, different types of resources, different ways that we can show care. But that really it is all so valuable, especially when we really believe in interdependence and in like recognizing just like care and intention. Yeah, so it's like my flowing river of interdependence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and I should also mention, because it will segue us to Anna's mosaic, is that not all of the hands here have them, but a couple of them are sort of featured with like a background of, what are they called? Plate? Tea saucers. Tea saucers specifically, but plates. They're like ornate little tea saucers that have been broken and then placed back together in their original shape. And I think something that I think a lot about when I am like, how do I offer care? How do I live to receive care? Is like food, like a very simple thing, but food. And so I wanted to bring that in with the plates. And Anna has a bowl.
Okay, so maybe. Yeah, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about this last piece here. So this is a mosaic. It's about 2.5 feet by 3.5 feet wide, and it's constructed entirely out of glass. It's quite sharp, like I'll say that the edges are quite sharp, but I do invite you to carefully touch it, and careful only so that you don't cut your hand. I'm not worried about the artwork itself. There's a lot of gold and teal, kind of some watery colors. The bowl itself is white with some highlight and low light tones, and there are 2 spoons in this mosaic. I think for me, like if I step a little bit outside of like just the boundaries of this world or this ecosystem of the exhibition, but how I move through the world and what helps me to make sense of it and feel good and grounded is to slow things down. So I really like working in slow cooked methods, like art practices that require me to be present, to do a thing slowly. And, you know, eventually I'll realize this vision. And And I think for mosaic, like it was the first kind of making practice for me before I identified as a visual artist. So this is going back 20 years ago. So working with discarded materials as also, you know, the paper materials that have been gifted or that have been literally thrown out, that have a second life. There's something about it to me that is very important. And the other layer with mosaic itself is that it's a piece that it's a practice that's born of fragmentation, like bringing together lots of little pieces to create a whole. And I feel like that is really, you know, what living a lifetime is about, like kind of making sense of, like now being just on the other side of 50, this is a different iteration of myself, you know, versus who I was at 30 or 20. And to kind of welcome that change. And in a way, it's like what I experienced as fragmentation is like, oh no, this makes sense. I'm continuing to evolve. And that means that my embodiment and how I think about things and what I need is different. And so, you know, this mosaic is just another layer of, it's another iteration of carrying, holding, releasing. And this time it's just very direct, two hands holding a bowl, and there are two spoons, and the spoons is just a reference for like how much I have available at any given moment, you know, to be with myself or with others. Yeah. Yeah. We've said, so there's so many words. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would like to move around and talk with folks, but maybe while we're together in this way, are there any questions that you want to ask or reflections? It doesn't need to be a question, like just anything that you want to kind of share with the whole group or hear from YJ and I in this formation. Andy, hi Andy.
Yeah, reaching beyond the river grass. Reaching beyond the river grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you to the everybody who's joined us here in person and also the folks who are with us online. For sure, we want to thank our funders, the Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, and a few different programs, visual arts and craft and exhibition assistance. And I want to say it's just been like such a delight to work with Tangled, like, and the whole staff team. Tangled does a lot of really important work. Some of it is here in the gallery, and a lot of it is in the community and other spaces and digital spaces. And so just a lot of gratitude to all of you. I'm trying to catch your eyes, and the folks in there, thank you. Yeah, Nicole.
Just to catch up on comments in the chat, Tiffany says, thanks for answering getting questions, any questions. Sin says, ooh, access to sentence is a very fair thing. Sin also says, it's called help.
Yeah.
Earlier, and Casey says, yeah, Tango.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
What time is it?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Please
do, Sonia.
We can invite people to the library.
Yeah, okay, so I thank you, Anna and YJ, and to all of our incredible access support team, Jack Hawk, who's been the access doula online, as well as Finn, who's our ED, has been joining us there. Nicole has been very valiantly driving the iPad on a tripod, which doubles as a digital way that folks can interact with this exhibition. So you can either book one through the iPad or through a little robot we have called Rosa. You can basically book a 30-minute kind of drive it yourself session if you're interested in checking the space out online. Thank you to Heidi, who's also been here diligently making sure that we remain a map on space. Thank you to Savannah and Nico, our ASL interpreters, and as well as Nikki, who is our care attendant, and to redefine arts for this fantastic partnership. We're super excited for the writing workshop on December 12th, and as well, we have a closing event January 19th, which is going to be with the Epic Choir with Redefine Arts. So we are super excited for that. But for folks online, if anyone wants to check out any of the works around here one more time, we're happy to drive you over to some of the works. And again, I'm inviting everyone here and online to participate in the participatory kind of activity. So if folks want to come into the library, please feel free to, make the response you've had to today's talk and to being in the space. And just, thank you again to Anna and YJ. Just such an incredible space.
Yay. Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Let's unplug this one and we can just use the regular. I mean,